Unlocking Freedom in Nature and Art. So we're excited to be here today, and I am blessed to have my good friend Starlee Murray co-hosting with me today. And we have an amazing guest also, Brisa Alfaro.
Yes, Brisa Alfaro.
So excited to be here. So if you guys have any questions, please ask. But we're going to go right to this. Brisa, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you for having me on the show and getting to hang out with you two ladies. You guys are amazing.
So, Brisa, where are you coming from today?
I'm coming from California.
From California? What part?
Southern California.
Southern?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
And Starlee, you're coming from?
I'm coming from Texas.
And I'm clear up here in North Idaho. So as you can see, we're all kind of spread out. Of course, they're in warmer weather. I mean, it's been nice here, but it's raining today. But that's how our area stays so green.
Green and beautiful.
Yes.
And so it is. And yesterday I actually was blessed to go on a walk with friends. So that was nice. And then came back and weeded my yard just so when Starlee comes to visit me, there's no weeds in there of my flower beds.
You heard it. You heard it, Brisa. Road trip.
Road trip. Let's go. Pick me up along the way.
Yeah.
All right, Brisa, you come on up too. So
if you saw Tammy's facility, you'd invite yourself as well. So retreats at Tammy's.
Perfect.
Yes. And speaking of retreats, we do have one coming up in July. So be sure to check that out. So let's go into this, Brisa. Brisa, I want to hear your story, your journey, and I want to start with your childhood. Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in California. I grew up in a very close.
You heard it, Brisa. Road trip.
I grew up in a very. Oh, we got a little feedback. Very close.
Your sound's going down, Brisa.
Mine?
Got it. I got it.
Okay. So
I was responding to the chat and it opened it back up.
Awesome. Okay. So you grew up in Southern California?
Yes, I grew up in Southern California. My family's been here, since I was born. And somewhere along the ways, when I was about in my 20s, I decided to move to New York. And I was in love with the city life. I wanted city life and, something that I didn't experience.
So I'm going to take you back even further. I want to know what your family was like. Did you live in town? Did you live on a farm?
No,
at the beach? Where I want to know a little bit more what you were like as a kid.
So when I was a kid, I listened to myself and my little brothers. I have two brothers and myself. We were outside all the time, and that was kind of our thing. And I guess it's our generation too. We didn't want to be inside. We wanted to stay outside as long as possible. As long as the street lights were on, we could be outside. As soon as they turned on, though, we had to be inside. So we spent all of our days outside, playing with our cousins and, barefoot in the grass and in the dirt and playing with mud and I used to make mud pancakes with
I did too.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought I was cooking. I don't know. But I loved my childhood. I loved everything about. I'm trying to think of some of the key moments that I experienced when I was a kid, because I didn't grow up in, my family didn't have a lot, and I didn't know that my family didn't have a lot, because I felt like we were doing well. That wasn't something that I really thought about, finances or anything like that. And all I thought about was how I felt. I was having fun. I love my life. I love my family. And I feel like that really goes along with who I am today, because I didn't really hold much value in monetary things or physical objects or anything like that. I really wanted time with my family. I really enjoyed being with my cousins and outside and playing and making experiences. And that's one thing that my family kind of honed in on. They saw that we enjoyed experiences. So they created them for us. And they were simple things like taking us to a park where all of our cousins, we could roll down a little hill and see who won first. Things like that. Like that, I remember things like that more than the toys I had, I guess. I don't know. So I lived a very, I guess, humble beginning. And my dad worked all the time. He was a bartender and he came here from Mexico wanting to create a better life for himself. And he had a dream that he could do it and he could do it here. And I remember when he became a citizen of the United States, he was so proud and so I just remember what he showed us as kids. Like, you can be anything you want to be ever. Like, if you put all of your hard work and effort and everything into something, you can become it. And he wanted to be an American, so he became it. And I remember studying with him and studying the Constitution and all the things, and more. I learned more there than I did in school, but it was crazy. I just remember these little moments that have defined my future and has defined my, well, I'll get into my story in a little bit, but has defined my recovery because of those little moments from my childhood. So,
Oh, well,
yeah.
thank you for sharing that. That is so much like, I mean, I remember rolling down the hills with my brothers and sisters and my cousins and making the mud pies and stuff. That is an amazing story. And you're right. I believe families need to stop focusing on the money, the finances, but on having fun, the moments. The moments are so important. And it's like if you look back in life, what are the regrets? The regrets are if you're not spending that time, not taking those special moments to spend with others or to do something, that's for you to
Yeah, I
enjoy.
think it's a big it it really means a lot. I remember when my dad was studying to become a citizen, I didn't realize what I valued more was the time I got to sit with my dad and study with him and practice test and do all these things. I didn't realize that's what I was going to remember most. I didn't I didn't really focus on the importance of, well, he wanted to be a business owner. He wanted to, live the American dream and open a business, which he did. And he opened it in 1991 and it's still around to this day. So it's it was his dream to create something, but I got to watch him manifest this dream and realize, like, it all happens with the small decisions that we decide to make. And I think that those moments are priceless. Those moments that we can't trade them in. And sometimes you can't learn it from even education won't teach you that. It's
No,
it's the lived in moments, the moments that you actually experience, that you have to go through, that you grow through.
you do. Your dad is a awesome example to the way he taught you and I can just see it in your eyes and your face, the glow, the pride, and and it's not a selfish pride, it's a proud pride. It's amazing. And I love, love, love the story because that's what life is about. It's it that is That tells me a lot about you.
Mm, thank you.
It tells me what you take, what is important in life. And it's those little things that is so sad because I see so many children or teenagers missing out on that today. They have grown up here and they don't appreciate what they do have because a lot of times they spend all their time inside gaming or doing other things instead of going outside in nature and enjoying, learning how to be creative. There's a lot to it. I've had quite a few other friends that have became U.S. citizens. And after listening to them, I'm like, I think every person that lives here probably should take the test.
No, definitely. Definitely.
Because
When
they
I was,
would learn so much more.
yeah,
Because I think as you grow up and stuff, so many people take it for granted.
yeah.
And,
Oh, 100%.
but
100%. I noticed that when my dad became a citizen, it was a room full of immigrants and I mean, it was just so emotional. I'll never forget that day where all everybody became, naturalized citizens, and they're just waving their American flag, and they have all are holding these little flags and tears in their eyes, and they appreciate this country more than us that were born in it, and we're like, it's something that we just take for granted, you know. And I remember not just my dad seeing the tears in my dad's eyes, but just so many people knowing they worked so hard to get to this place. And I think that if we all focus on something that we're trying to accomplish in that way, man, the things that we could create, it's incredible. I mean, become hyper focused on anything and you can create some pretty amazing things.
oh, definitely. So I love it. So I want to say hi to, and if I miss any, but Starly, let me know. Susan, Olivia, Trish, anybody else that is watching. So, because I
That's
can't
who
see
I
all of
have.
them.
I've been saying hello. I said hello to Olivia and to Trish and Susan. I didn't see you on there because I was on the comments. So I'm going to say hi, Susan.
So, welcome in. If you guys have any questions, just ask. So, and Brees is just sharing her story here, and it's been an amazing story. So, thank you, Brees. That just tells us, like I said, so much about you.
Yeah.
So this was you. So, were you in grade school or high school when your dad got his citizenship?
I was in high school, I think. I think I was in high school or junior high, I think I was. Like in between high school and middle school. So yeah, I think that that was a defining moment in my life.
So, and what in high school, what were like your favorite subjects? Was there anything that went on there that helped define another moment in your life?
Oh yeah, there was a many moments throughout my life that defined who I am today, who I was when I was recovering. I remember, so we talk about nature, right? Nature has a way of like just
It's our
showing you
therapy.
it's so therapeutic, right? That we go out in nature and we don't even realize why we feel so much better. I always give the example, when you go to the beach and you walk on the beach, you take your shoes off, and you have to take your shoes off, and you're walking barefoot on the sand. All of a sudden you're just like, this is what I needed. You don't realize how much you do need nature. And I was obsessed with the city. I wanted the city. And I don't know why. I was a kid. I watched a movie about New York one day and I was like, I want to go to, because I lived in Southern California. I was a small city, but outside of LA, and it's small city, but it like wasn't filling my cup for the city life. And I kept watching these movies with city life and, with fashion and the girls and, their heels. And I just wanted to be a girly girl. And I used to work in the beauty industry. So I kind of went in that direction. But before that, I was obsessed with the city and I just really wanted it. And so I remember watching a movie in my childhood that talked about New York. And I remember making a statement to my family. One day, I'm going to live in New York. I'm going to live in New York City. They're like, what? Why? Who lives in New York City? Why do you want to go there? And I'm like, I don't know. I just want to go there. I want to live there. I want to live in the city. Okay, Brisa, whatever. So they didn't believe me, but fast forward in my 20s, I owned a hair salon in the city I grew up in. And I had a backdrop of New York City skyline. I mean, this was before the Twin Towers. So I had the Twin Towers on the mural on the backdrop. And I just kept telling my family one day, I'm going to live in New York. Well, that one day I was probably 20, I don't know, 20 something years old. I just said, why not? I got off of work. I was finished with all my clients. I went on, back in the day, it was Craigslist. I went on Craigslist and I was looking through, seeing some job openings and everything. And I found a job in New York City. And I decided I'm going to move to New York. I'm going to do it. I was going to close the salon and I was going to move to New York. My mom said she'd take over the salon. And she, didn't want me to go to New York, but I kind of didn't give her a choice. I told her that I was for sure going to go and I just left. So I went with a one-way ticket and I didn't know that I was going to stay as long as I did because I had saved some money and I was dwindling down on my money because I couldn't find a place. And I just felt such a strong calling to New York that I needed to stay there. And I said, I'll stop at nothing. And I interviewed in every salon environment and just everything. I worked several jobs while I was out there. And I finally landed a room. I had a roommate and she lived right in the city where I wanted to live. And I lived there and I enjoyed it for some time. I think it was like 7 years, 6 years. I don't remember, something like that. But I enjoyed my time there. I loved it. And I just remember when, as a kid, you couldn't tell me no. Like when was fixated on something and I knew it was for me, I would stop at nothing until I got it. So this wasn't any different. I was going to go to New York and I was going to live in New York and I was going to experience it the way I wanted to. And I did until one day.
Sounds like your traits came from your dad.
Totally. 100%. My mom tells me all the time, you're so your dad. Oh, yeah.
When you're determined, you're going to do it. You're going to do it.
Yeah. My mom, she always tells me, she's like, I love that about my dad has since passed, but my mom loves that I have so many traits of my dad. And she'll just say, you're your father's daughter. Always. She'll catch glimpses of my dad through me all the time.
I love that. So what happened?
So I ended up in New York City and I was working there, living my life and enjoyed it. And then I started missing my family. I moved back to New York, back to California, and I kept my work in New York. So I would travel back to New York often. And in one of my travels in New York, I ended up in a New York City hospital faced with a less than 1% chance to live. I had no idea that something like that would happen to me. I didn't think that those kind of odds were for me. They're for other people, not for me. But the universe works in mysterious ways, and I had something that most people would say took their life away from them. I say that it's given me life. And I had a stroke. I was 32 years old and I had a stroke. Something that I did not know that could happen to me. I thought it was, for older people. I thought it was for, you have to be either unhealthy or, something's wrong. I was healthy. I worked out. I, did all the things right on paper, but there was a lot of things that I wasn't paying attention to. And eventually your body will react. And it did. And
so where were you at when you had you were
I was
in
in
New
New York.
York? Were
I was
you
in
at
New York.
work or at home?
I was getting ready for work and I called my mom. I FaceTime with her. I said, Mom, I don't feel good. I don't know what's wrong with me. And we were FaceTiming and I said, I'm like swollen. My eyes are swollen. My face is swollen. I don't know what's wrong. So she says, yeah, you don't look good. You need to go to the hospital. You need to go to emergency room. So I went to the emergency room, filling out my paperwork. Of course, I'm in my 20s. Like, I don't know, or no, I was in my early 30s. I think I was 31, 32. So I FaceTime my mom and I said, Mom, or I called her and I said, Mom, they're asking me these questions. On the paperwork, I'm like, I don't really know how to answer it. So she's helping me fill out my paperwork as any mom would, doesn't matter how old I am. So
Right.
she's helping me fill out my paperwork and telling me, no, and so I'm filling it out. And I remember, okay, Mom, I think I got it from here. I'll call you later. I never called her back. I never called her back. And hours were going by. My mom has my locator. She's like, she's still in the hospital. Why is she still in the hospital? This is hours. She didn't understand it. So she called my brothers and she says, hey, she's in New York, but she's in in the hospital and she's not moving from that location. I think there's something wrong. And my brothers are like, no, she's probably with her friends. It's not a big deal. And my mom's like, no, I have this gut feeling something's wrong. Mamas have a gut feeling when their kids are
They
something
do.
wrong. Yeah. And she knew. And she says, I'm just gonna buy a one-way ticket to New York. My family was like, that's crazy. How are you gonna do? You don't even know. She's probably fine. No, I have a feeling there's something wrong. So she bought her one-way ticket, was on her way to LAX. And that's when the doctors called her and told her, we have your daughter. She's doing fine. She's sedated, but she's in a room. And she's like, what do you mean she's sedated? And they said that they put me in a medically induced coma. And she's just, her mind is blown because she's like, she went in there for allergies, like something was going on. There's nothing, at this point, she had no idea that I had suffered a stroke. Then she gets to New York, walks up or takes the elevator up to my, room and opens the door to see her daughter laying in a hospital bed without any movement whatsoever, with the machines breathing for her. And I remember her saying to me, I felt like it was a dream. It was a nightmare. It was somebody else living it. Somebody else opened the door. Somebody else saw, you laying in the hospital bed. It was somebody else. This was not me. So I think our brain kind of does that to us to protect us, like to tell us, like, I think sometimes a lot of information that we're receiving, we're not ready to handle it. And it's a protective mechanism that our brain kind of does on its own. We're trying to process it in different ways. And she saw me laying there talking to the doctors, telling her that there are less than 5 cases of what I suffered worldwide. And there are even less than that of someone that is recovered from this condition. And that's when they told her I didn't just have a stroke, I had suffered locked-in syndrome. So locked-in syndrome is when you are awake and aware, but you're unable to move your body. And you're unable to move not just any body parts, but you can't even breathe on your own. That's why I was trached. That's the scar you see right here. I was trached and the machines were breathing for me. I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't move. I couldn't communicate. I was just a body laying in a bed. I was a vegetable, basically. However, I could hear what they were saying. They didn't know that I could hear, and I was trying to communicate with them. They didn't realize that. So little by little, my mom would sit there with me, regardless of the fact that the doctors were telling her, you should call your family and, start preparing for end of life and things like that, because the odds are not great. And my mom just kept saying, no, you don't know the strength that my daughter has and what her purpose is. That is not for you to decide. And I'm so grateful that she never gave up on me, regardless of the fact that I didn't look like I should recover, or it didn't seem like on paper, it didn't seem like it would ever happen. I'm so grateful that she didn't give up on me. Because there's a lot of times that we're faced with facts and we look at those facts as that's the end all be all. And there's no reason for us to keep trying. But if we look at those facts as just information, they don't know you. They don't know your drive, your mindset. They don't know, but you do. So I realized my mom had so much faith in me. She had so much will for me to survive. And even though I was thinking I was also done, I was thinking this is the end of the road for me, I had to borrow my mom's belief and realize that if she thinks I could do this, then I'm going to borrow her belief until I can believe it myself.
It's the mindset, it's kind of like when the doctors told me, and the insurance companies, well, you may not wake up tomorrow. If I would have believed and went with their stuff, I probably wouldn't be here. But, I had faith and God was telling me something totally different. And that's why my favorite quote is, with God, all things are possible.
Amen.
Because he's the one in control. It's not the doctors. It's not what they say. And I was talking to a friend yesterday who is a respiratory therapist, and she's like, oh my gosh, she is so lucky to be alive.
Yeah. And I did. Thank you. I didn't honestly realize how severe it was, I guess. I didn't realize how rare it was, even though I would hear from the medical staff. They would talk about it. I was at a learning facility. It was a New York Presbyterian, but there was a lot of, I don't know what they're called. They're doctors that are like practicing. They have to go room to room. So the doctors are kind of explaining what my state was, and I'm listening to it. They're kind of outside of my range because I don't think they want me to hear it, but
Right.
they also know that I'm a vegetable, so they're giving me grace to step out of the room, but I could still hear it. And I just remember thinking, they're not talking about me. That's not me. There's no way. Everything that they're saying, all of my odds that they're saying, how is it that I got to this point where other people are leaving me with the odds that they believe is possible for me? How did I get to this point? And it took me a minute, but I finally realized that is not up to them. That's up to God and me. He put that belief in me that I could, that possibility exists, that I could be okay, that I could get up and walk again and live a life again. But he put it on me. He's like, I gave you the tools, go and do it. So what are you going to do with it? So part of the tools was listening to the belief in my mom, that my mom was, speaking over me. And I started to believe in it. It changed from it morphed into, she believes I can, she believes I can do it, I'm going to do it for her, to, I can do this. I can do this myself. I know I can do this. So to help you guys understand, a brainstem stroke, the brainstem, it's like the superhighway going into the brain. So anything that goes in to your brain has to pass through the brainstem. And when you have a brainstem stroke, it cuts off all communication. So it's like the freeway is closed. There's no going, there's everybody that's in your brain, like think of your brain as a town. No one can go into that town. Everybody stays in the town. Whatever you've got going on in there will just stay in there. Hence the reason I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. It just stayed in my town. It stayed in my brain. But it couldn't communicate through the rest of my body because there was a barricade there. So that's a brainstem stroke that develops into locked-in syndrome. So I couldn't send the signals to my limbs to move again because I couldn't figure out how to pass the barricade at my brainstem. But I had such a strong belief in my willpower, and I just knew that there was going to be nothing that I would stop at. I knew I was going to be okay. And so what I started to focus on was showing my mom a sign that I was still in my body, that I could hear them. So when they would speak and have conversations, so my whole family was in the room at this point, they would have conversations, I would want to, join them, but I couldn't. So they would catch me moving body parts, but I didn't know what body part I was moving. I would make flexes on my legs or feet or hands, and I would twitch, and my body would posture. And the doctors, my mom would, tell the doctors, and the doctors would say, I'm sorry, ma'am, I know you want to believe those movements are voluntary, but those movements are involuntary.
Oh my gosh.
And it's just because I couldn't hone in on one thing. So it was just kind of flailing about. We do that a lot with our businesses, with our life, with our family. We don't know what we're doing. So we feel like we're throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. Right. And we're like, man, I don't know. Let's see. Let's try that. I don't know. And I kind of felt like that at this point. I was trying to figure out to see what was noticed, if anything would be noticed. And finally, my mom noticed, because it was happening consistently. And she says, are you moving? Are you moving on command? Do it again. And she kept trying it again and again. And then she says, okay, this is working. She calls the medical professionals in, all of my neurologists, my nurses, everybody's in. They're like, she can move. She can move on command. Watch. So I knew this was a big moment. I knew that my mom couldn't handle another rejection from them to say, no, these movements are involuntary. She couldn't handle that again. And I knew I needed to show a sign, but I needed also to get crystal clear on what I needed to move again. So instead of sending the energy and signals past the barricade, from my brainstem past the barricade, through my body, just the energy flying through my body. I needed direction. I needed to get specific, one thing. And that specific thing was my hand. I wanted to open my hand and show them, because I kept moving my pinky. My mom kept seeing my pinky move. My family kept seeing my pinky move, but my doctors didn't see my pinky move, because now when they would come back in the room, I would be tired and I didn't know how to send that energy beam to my pinky again. So now it was something else, another body part. So now I was inconsistent on my movements again. So I again needed to focus, and focus breeds clarity. And I feel like that's what my doctors needed. They needed to become clear that this is recovery. This is no longer what you thought it was. This is a recovery. And it came through finally when all the doctors were around me and I focused on one particular body part, and that was my hand. I just sent signals to my hand. Open your hand, open your hand. I heard the voices from my family members, my loved ones, the doctors, everybody. Can you open your hand? Open your hand, open your hand. Yes, I sent those signals through the brainstem, through my arm, all the way down to my wrist. And you know what? It started stalling at my wrist, and it wasn't coming through. And I think it started stalling because one of my neurologists said, she's not doing it. She's not doing it. And my other neurologist said, wait, give her more time. I think her face just twitched. Her face just twitched. I think a lot of us think that we need huge movements. We need to climb these huge milestones and mountains to get to where we want to be. But my face just twitched. That's a micro move. And that micro move gave my family, my doctors, my everybody, every medical professional in that room, it gave everyone in that room hope, because they gave me more time and I was able to connect the dots. In that time, I was able to move my hand. You would have thought a Super Bowl erupted in my hospital room, because everybody was so excited. I finally made that connection. But sometimes we don't give enough time for ourselves to make that connection, because we give up too soon. We're like that other neurologist that I had, that other doctor that says, no, she's not doing it. But sometimes we need someone else in our corner that says, no, you're doing it. You just need more time. You just need to adjust a little bit. Just a little fraction of a movement will change everything. And that's what happened. It was a fraction of a movement. And then after the fraction of a movement on my face, I moved my pinky. That was also a fraction of a movement, but that was celebrated over and over and over again. Moving my pinky, moving my hand, moving my arm, moving my shoulder, like everything, the right side of my body. Months and months later, the left side came back to me. I focused on every little body part. Instead of focusing on my whole body moving again, like I wanted it to, I focused on tiny movements. I focused on the little small moves that can make a big difference. So if I open my hand like this, I'll be able to do XYZ. If I extend my foot like this, I'll be able to do XYZ. So I kept focusing on these little small micro moves that made a big difference. And I realized that if we do that in life, we will create a life that is hardly recognizable. I've created a life that I don't recognize anymore, from who I was in the hospital to who I am now, to even standing on a stage and TEDx stage and sharing my story with amazing, amazing individuals like yourselves, and writing a book and being a co-author, and I just never expected that my life would unfold like this. But we don't know. What we need to focus on is the little tiny pinky move progress. Make opening our hand, moving our pinky, just those little micro shifts that's going to lead us to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. But if we keep focusing on the big mountain ahead, it's too big, it's too grand, it's too many steps. We're not going to look at it like I can get to the top of that mountain. We're going to look at it like that mountain is way too big to climb. But if we focus on putting one step, one foot in front of the other, we can get there.
Yes, we can. So amazing story. So how long were you in the hospital?
I was locked in my body for 2 weeks, and I was unlocking, completely locked in like that. And then I started unlocking little bits and pieces of my body for years. It took me years to get everything back, physically speaking. But mentally, I still struggle with, we were talking about this earlier, Tammy, I struggle with invisible deficits and things that people wouldn't realize. I short-term memory. I have part of my aphasia, which is a problem with language, but I also have a problem with numbers. And I think it's called a calculia, where I don't understand numbers. I don't understand the value of dollars, the value of numbers. I used to be a hairstylist, so I used to use formulas. Formulas are numbers.
Right.
The world revolves around numbers. So it's been fun trying to live life around numbers, but
hey, I totally get it. Like I was telling you, a lot of times, people don't realize it's like I have headaches 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if I say I have a migraine or something, it means my headaches are really bad. They're at the level 10 right now. But my memory, sometimes I can't remember a close friend's name or something simple, or numbers is another thing. It's like, people like ask me, how much is that art piece? I'm like, you're going to have to go to the website. I have no idea for what the name is sometimes, or what the price is. And people will look at you and like, are you crazy? Because you look good in person. I've even had doctors that were like, well, you look too good. There's no way you have tumors or you have this or that. And then they pull up my medical charts and they're like, oh,
yeah,
and but that's what happens. So it's like, treat everybody with kindness, because you don't know what's behind them or what they may be going through that day.
no, 100%.
Right. And it's just because somebody forgets your name or numbers, it's like, introduce yourself again, it's like, or do something kind. It's not that we're doing it on purpose. It's like, right, God willing, we remember stuff, right?
Right. I talk about it like this. When people don't realize that I have short-term memory issues, my long-term memory, I can tell you phone numbers from my childhood. I have no problem with that.
Same here.
But yeah, but what I have issues with is short-term. So when our conversation that we just had, and if I'm trying to remember a certain thing, so excuse me, what I always talk about is, a lot of people don't realize what a Rolodex is because they're too young to understand. But I say
Starly does too.
A Rolodex in my mind of all of my information, or better yet, I'll say a filing cabinet. I have a filing cabinet full of information, and that's all stored in my brain. I have a brain injury now. So now with this brain injury, somebody knocked over my filing cabinet. All of my files are all over the floor. That's AKA my memories, right? My short-term memories, my long-term, everything, all of my files are on the floor. Sometimes when I want to remember a certain thing that's not coming to me. It's just not. It's because while I'm speaking, I'm searching for that file. Sometimes I never find that file. And sometimes I pick it up right away and I'm so excited. I'm like, whoa, I even surprised myself. I'm like, I just remembered that. And so what I like to talk about is celebration. When you do something that you normally have a hard time with, and you just executed it without problems, without issues, without like just quickly, and you surprised yourself, make a note of that. Celebrate that. Make it a big deal, because what gets celebrated gets repeated. And I think most of all of my recovery, I have been doing that for everything. Every little thing that I've done that I've recovered from, even that I haven't, I still talk about. It's a celebration. I still celebrate it, like, oh, I was able to do that. Going back to like working with Olivia and Clint, when they started grounding me, since my stroke, had not slept entire night through. And I just thought that was normal. I've talked to every medical professional and they would always tell me that, well, you had a stroke, you had a major brain injury. And that just goes hand in hand. Your insomnia, it just goes hand in hand. So I did not expect earthing to help me with sleeping. Like I just never thought it would help. But the first time I tried it, again, this is a little pinky move. I put it on my bed. I put the earthing mat on my bed and I slept the entire night. I didn't know whether or not it was going to be helping me. I didn't know whether or not it was just a fluke that it helped me that one time, because it did help me with my breathing. While I was speaking to Clint and Olivia, they were having a hard time hearing me because of my surgery. I just had surgeries on my airways and my throat was closing up again. And they said, can we put a grounding pad, earthing pad on your palm? And as I was speaking to them, my voice was getting stronger. My airways were opening up and it was helping me in real time. So I believed in the product for that. I had no idea that it was going to help me sleep a whole night through, to the point where I woke up, and talk about celebration. I celebrated the fact that it was daytime. I'd never slept the whole night through, but because I would wake up and it was always night, multiple times a night. I woke up and I heard the birds chirping. What? The sun was coming in my room. It was crazy. I walked outside and I just sat on the grass and I was so thankful that Mother Earth healed me when it came to that. I had no idea that a tiny little pinky move like that could help something so, that I was struggling with. Could help something that I was starting to build resentment.
Right.
I was starting to see people sleeping all night or just fall asleep like kids when they fall asleep in the weirdest positions, like on the couch upside down, and they just are sleeping. And I'm like, I wish I would look at my dog and I would see her sleeping and I would just think, I wish I could sleep like that. I started resenting people that would sleep well and have good health and have good memory and so I started to realize, like, no, you need to celebrate every time something good comes around. And earthing, that was God sent. It was God sent. And I was able to sleep again. I was able to like live my life without being sleepy halfway through. I would check out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and I don't care who was talking to me. I would just exit the building because I couldn't be around. I had to close my eyes for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, whatever it was, close my eyes, check out, and then check back in. For the first time in my life, I wasn't having to do that. It's something that you don't realize that you miss until you miss it, until it's gone.
It's one of those things, if you don't have the earthing mat on, or if you don't spend time out in nature, that's when you really notice the difference. You know, you take for granted when you're out there all the time, or if you earthing mats, like, oh yeah, they work, right? But then people's like, oh, how do you prove it? And it's like, then you're in your mind, you're like, oh, how do I prove it to myself, you know? But if you don't sleep on it, then it's like, oh, there's a difference. If I don't spend enough time out in nature, I can tell the difference.
Right. Yep. And I slept on my grounding mat without expectations. So the fact that it did it anyways, I feel like just some people will say, oh, it's just placebo. Earthing, grounding, it's just a placebo. I'm like, well, if that's your belief that it's a placebo and it's fixing those things, how is that a bad thing?
It's not. And I think
Not.
people forget.
It's not a placebo, but even if you believe it is, yes.
Okay, I have a comment specific to that. I love where you ladies are going with this. And of course, I don't know if our amazing community has, felt the great connection between, unlocking from your body and unlocking the freedom in nature. But anyway, this is amazing. But what you were just saying, Brisa, about the belief, whether it's placebo or not, let's just go back to the reality of your power of your belief and your entire story of what you just talked and about how you focused to get that pinky movement so you could get that result. The majority of the complaints that I hear, privately from people who are scared and nervous about being on camera or about their businesses or about their big influencer brand stuff that they want my help with, is that they are doing what you're teaching opposite, where I'm just focusing on that big mountain and I want that instant result. And they're comparing everybody's Instagram collection of best days to their everyday. And so, why would they give anything like your tips, my tips, Olivia's grounding? Why would they give that the pinky's chance to work when their belief system is instant big picture mountain result? And the last thing I wanted to tie into, because I was, remember your whole interview, is the experiences over things and your focus about celebrating your time with your family and enjoying this moment for its authenticity and organic nature as opposed to a particular thing and or even the grass is always greener, looking at what everybody else has instead of even enjoying what you have in that moment. And it was because of your belief system that you were able to, and for so many other reasons, that you were able to channel that belief in yourself and get that pinky movement and continuing on what you teach and what you're sharing with, Tammy and myself and our communities, that that is the sheer power of that pinky movement versus trying to have this instant result. Anyway, that just really resonates with me because I've had hundreds of people come to me either in tears or upset because of the consistent focus of the spaghetti on the wall. I'm not there yet because of the consistent everybody's best Instagram photo is, not my everyday life. And
Yeah.
so therefore I'm a failure and I give up on myself. But guess what? What about the borrowed beliefs that you just taught? What if we get borrowed beliefs from Brisa and from, Tammy and from Olivia? What about these borrowed beliefs of these inspirational leaders or authentic influencers or wellness leaders or, you know, my gosh, that's where the power is. So I just want to say thank you because that was really landing with me and
And thank
I'm
you,
grateful.
Starly, because actually, that was one of the things I was going to bring up. Those little steps, how important, because I don't know how many leaders out there always want you to focus on the larger goal
Yes, ma'am.
instead of taking those smaller steps at a time. And if we don't focus on those, so I think we're going to just have Brisa back because
Yes.
time has flown.
Yes. Yes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You girls have been amazing. Thank you for letting me be a part of it. And by the way, I have an unlocking of my own grounding because I have an unboxing of an earthing blanket here soon this week.
Oh,
But
lucky you.
Tammy, of course, I said some of your answers because you and I are soul sisters and we think alike.
Yes. You are my soul sister. So, Brisa, was there any last words you wanted to say before? I can't believe it's already been an hour.
I didn't realize it either. But yeah, I always leave people with this: small moves really do create big results. And just focus on the next small thing you can do that creates a result. That's it. Don't think of the big mountain. Small moves create big results.
Totally agree. I agree with both of you because I know when I go out hiking and I hike that mountain, I'm not focused on the top, I'm focused on each step along the way. And I'm enjoying the moments and enjoying the view, stopping and viewing it, because if we don't take those times, which is the moments of joy and celebration of where you are at that time, you're going to miss out.
Yeah.
If all we do is focus on our steps or miles or getting to that summit, then we're missing out on so many things. So enjoy those steps, like Brisa mentioned, and take those small moves like Starlee was mentioning. So I want to thank my guest, Brisa, and I want to thank my co-host, Starlee, today. Thank you both, ladies, for being here. Of course, we want you both back, and I appreciate our audience. If you have any questions, ask them. We'll follow up with it. And thank you so much. Hope you have an amazing week. Thank you.